Daily News Simplified, the answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today I am going to discuss Delhi edition dated 2nd May 2018 of The Hindu. So let's begin. We will discuss this article that appears on page 13 and it reads, RBI allows foreign portfolio investors to buy treasury bills and debt limit stays. So this article basically says that RBI has allowed the foreign portfolio investors to invest in the treasury bills that are issued by the government. Also, in another recent notification, RBI has also allowed the foreign investors to invest in government and corporate bonds which have a tenure of less than 1 year. Also, the RBI has said that investment in these short-term securities that have a tenure of less than 1 year should not exceed 20% of the total investment. Now from this I wanted to understand two things. Firstly, you should know what is a foreign portfolio investment and what are treasury bills. And then we will also try to solve this question that has been asked in the prelims exam earlier. So basically, foreign portfolio investment is investment by non-residents in Indian securities. And these securities could include shares, government bonds, corporate bonds, infrastructure securities, etc. And the investors who make investment in these securities are known as foreign portfolio investors. Also, you should know the meaning of this term treasury bills. So, treasury bills are basically short-term debt instruments that are issued by the government to obtain credit or to obtain debt. Also, these treasury bills or T-bills are characterized as money market instruments. Why are they called money market instruments? Because money market deals with those funds that have a maturity of less than 1 year. And treasury bills also have a maximum maturity of 364 days. That is why treasury bills are called as money market instruments. At present, treasury bills are issued in 3 maturities, that is 91-day T-bills, 182-day T-bills and 364-day T-bills. Also, investors will obviously invest in treasury bills in order to earn some return on them. So the return to the investors who invest in treasury bills is equal to the difference between the maturity value and the issue price. So for example, say the issue price of a treasury bill is rupees 98 and the maturity value of that treasury bill is rupees 100. Then the difference of 2 rupees is the return to the investor. And usually this maturity value is equal to the face value of the treasury bill. And one last thing that you should know about treasury bills is that these treasury bills are usually purchased by financial institutions or banks. Banks usually hold these treasury bills as a part of their statutory liquidity ratio requirement. That is, this SLR requirement says that banks are required to hold a certain proportion of their deposits in the form of government securities. So for this purpose, banks purchase T-bills in order to meet their SLR requirements. And also, then banks give these T-bills to the RBI in return for money under the repo rate operations. So banks give T-bills to the RBI to get money under repo. So let's revise what we have understood from this. Basically, this article says that RBI has allowed foreign portfolio investors to invest in treasury bills that are issued by the government. These foreign investors can also invest in government and corporate bonds that have a tenure of less than 1 year. However, the total investment in these short-term securities should not exceed 20% of the total investment by foreign investors. After this, we have understood the meaning of foreign portfolio investment, which means investment by non-residents in the Indian securities such as in shares, government bonds, corporate bonds, infrastructure securities, etc. We have also understood the meaning of treasury bills, which are short-term debt instruments that are issued by the government in order to obtain credit. These treasury bills are money market instruments, that is, they have a maturity of less than 1 year. Also, the investors that purchase these treasury bills earn return in the form of the difference between the maturity value of the treasury bill and the issue price of this treasury bill. We understood this through an example. That is, if issue price is rupees 98 and maturity value is rupees 100, then this difference of 2 rupees is the return to the investor. Lastly, we understood that treasury bills are usually purchased by banks. That is, banks hold these T-bills as a part of their statutory liquidity ratio requirements. Also, banks give these treasury bills to the RBI in order to get money from the RBI through its repo rate operations. Now let's come back to that question. The question says, which of the following terms indicates a mechanism used by the commercial banks to provide credit to the government? Let's see the options. It says cash credit ratio, debt service obligation, liquidity adjustment facility and statutory liquidity ratio. And from this discussion, you know that the correct answer is statutory liquidity ratio. How? As we already discussed, that under SLR, banks are supposed to hold certain proportion of government securities. So usually what they hold is treasury bills. And by investing in these treasury bills, what banks are doing is they are providing credit to the government. And that's what we discussed here, that treasury bills are issued by the government in order to obtain credit. So such questions are asked in the prelims exam, and you should also understand this topic from the prelims point of view. With this, we will move on to the next article. Next, we will discuss this article that appears on page 1 and it reads, End of Celebrations with Party Poppers. So this article says that the Central Pollution Control Board has banned the use of party poppers on the grounds that these devices pose a health risk. In the prelims exam, this topic forms a part of general issues on environment that do not require subject specialization. And in prelims exam 2017, a question was asked which said, consider the following pairs. And it talked about some commonly used materials and the unwanted chemicals that are likely to be found in those materials. So similarly, we will discuss the unwanted chemicals that are found in party poppers, and since they have been banned by the CPCB because they pose a health risk, that is why this topic becomes important. So party poppers consist of a mixture which is called as Armstrong's mixture, which is used to create the explosives inside this party poppers. And the chemicals that are found in these party poppers are red phosphorus, potassium chlorate, potassium perchlorate and sulfur. Even though very small quantities of these chemicals are present in these party poppers, still they are harmful as they pose a health risk, and there have also been reports of injury when party poppers have exploded. So from the exam point of view, what is important for you to remember are the harmful chemicals that are found in party poppers, which are these 4 chemicals. With this, we will move on to the next article. We will discuss this article that appears on the editorial page and it reads Power Drive. This article is pertaining to the electricity sector and it forms a part of GS paper 3 under the heading Energy. And the main focus of this article is that it talks about the level of access to electricity in India. And access to electricity is an important part of energy security in the country. And related questions to this have been asked in the past in mains exams. For example, a question like this was asked which said, given the accelerated pace of development and demand for energy, would you consider renewable energy as a viable option for India's future? Another question asked, evaluate India's approach towards meeting the country's growing energy demands. So basically, both these questions are talking about energy security in India. And this article provides important points pertaining to access to electricity in India. So this article says that access to electricity plays an important role for the individuals in a country. For example, it helps in improving productivity of households. Secondly, access to electricity can help in women empowerment in the country. And thirdly, access to electricity will play an important role in enabling access to education and communication. However, at the same time, the article also points out that access to electricity in India still is very low. And for this, many reasons have been given in the article. Firstly, as we have been reading in the news recently, that the Prime Minister has said that the country has achieved 100% electrification of all its villages. However, at the same time, we also understand that as per the definition of electrification that is given by Ministry of Power, it says that if 10% of the households and public places in a village are electrified, then that village is considered as electrified. But the article says that this benchmark of 10% is a very low benchmark, and this does not justify 100% electrification, and hence this proves that access to electricity in the country is very low. Secondly, the article says that there is a wide disparity among the villages in different states in terms of hours of electricity supply. For example, villages in states like Mizoram get electricity for around 11.5 hours in a day, whereas the corresponding figure for states like Kerala, Gujarat and Tamil Nadu is 24 hours a day. This shows that there is a wide disparity among the villages across different states in the country. And what does this reflect? This reflects the infrastructure deficits and administrative inefficiency of the states in terms of supply of electricity. I am sure you all understand that electricity is a state subject. So if there is such a wide disparity in terms of supply of electricity, this reflects the deficits and administrative inefficiency on the part of the states. And hence, these figures reflect that the central government's goal of 24/7 power for all is far from reality. And the third reason that is provided by the article reflecting low access to electricity is that the census data between 2001 to 2011 reveals that electricity usage for urban households is around 92.7%, whereas the electricity usage for rural households is just 55.3%, and this is a very low number. And so this census data reflects that there is a large divergence between electricity usage between urban households and rural households, and this shows that access to electricity is low in the country. So in this respect, the article provides two solutions that should help in improving the access to electricity in the country. Firstly, as we know that from the past few years, one of the important sources to improve electricity access that is being considered by the government is renewable energy, or mainly through solar power. And in solar power also, the biggest contributor that is being considered is solar rooftop. But this article says that the states should adopt a hybrid solution. That is, this hybrid solution should include both grid connected solar power as well as standalone rooftop projects. That is, the states should not entirely rely on solar rooftop projects. Instead, they should adopt a hybrid solution. Another important point that is highlighted in this article, that the focus should not just be on providing electricity, but it should also be ensured that electricity is affordable. So another solution is provide affordable power to the households. So I hope you have understood many key points from this article pertaining to energy security and access to electricity. Access to electricity is important because it can help in improving the productivity of households, it can help in women empowerment, and it can help in enabling access to education and communication. However, at present, the access to electricity in India is very low. And this has been justified through various points in this article, which says that as per the definition of electrification, the country has achieved 100% electrification, but this 10% benchmark is a very low benchmark, which reflects that access to electricity is low. Secondly, there is a wide disparity among villages in different states in terms of hours of electricity supplied. And this situation or this disparity reflects the infrastructure deficits and administrative inefficiency of the states, which leads to lower access to electricity. And thirdly, as per the census data between 2001 to 2011, electricity usage by urban households and rural households has a wide disparity, which shows low access to power. So in order to improve this situation, the article provides two solutions. First is that the states should adopt a hybrid solution between grid connected solar power and standalone rooftop projects, as well as aim at providing affordable power to the households. So all these points discussed in this article are important from the mains exam point of view. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next article that we will discuss appears on page 8 and it reads The Rocky Road to 2019. So, although this article is a political one, yet it covers many challenges that India faces and they form a part of the UPSC syllabus under different topics. So, we will discuss all those issues one by one in today's discussion. The first issue that the author has talked about is internal security, and this forms a part of paper 3 in the UPSC syllabus. Here, the first thing that the author talks about is the Jammu and Kashmir issue. So it is being claimed that the situation is stable in Jammu and Kashmir, but the reality is very different. In the past year, there has been an increase in the casualties of civilians and security personnel. There has been an upsurge in terrorist violence, rise in cross-border terrorism, and increased infiltration from Pakistan. The next issue that is talked about is Maoism. The author says that Maoist violence is not so prevalent in areas where it was once rampant. Yet, the Maoists have been successful in carrying out selective violence, especially in their strongholds such as Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Maharashtra. And the author says that since this is an ideology-based militant movement, it needs to be countered by a sustained ideological campaign in the rural and urban areas. However, this is not being done as of now. The next topic that is discussed is about the agrarian unrest in the country. There have been many protest movements by farmers in the country, and the basic issue still remains the same, that is, the neglect of farmers and the agrarian community by those who are in the authority. And the last internal security issue discussed by the author pertains to cyber security, where the author has said that India is possibly the third most vulnerable country today from the point of view of cyber attacks. And a devastating cyber attack could undermine public confidence in the country. Since India is already struggling to deal with threats such as ransomware and cryptojacking, there is a need for India to tone up its strategic mindset and increase its homegrown capabilities in cyber security. So I hope you have understood all these key issues pertaining to internal security in this article. The next issue that has been discussed is Dalit identity and concerns. Here the author has talked about the issue of Dalit self-assertion. Recently, in April, a bandh was sponsored by different Dalit groups in the country to protest the judgment of the Supreme Court amending the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act. Also, the author says that these systemic problems cannot be resolved by appeasement politics or more reservation. Next issue discussed in this article is violence against children, which forms a part of vulnerable sections. In this, the author has given the examples of the rape cases in Kathua in Jammu and Unnao in Uttar Pradesh. And through these examples, it is clear that there is widespread resentment against administration for their failure to protect the honor and dignity of women and children. And the last topic that has been discussed by the author pertains to cracks in the two major pillars, namely the parliament and the judiciary. Here the author has talked about the parliament logjam, that is the extent of disruption in the functioning of parliament, and the author says that the washout of complete budget session is unprecedented. And the next issue discussed by the author pertains to judiciary, that is the press conference held by 4 senior judges against the manner in which cases are allotted by the Chief Justice of India points to divisions within the court. Also, the submission of motion for the removal of CJI in Rajya Sabha has never happened before. So in this article, the author has talked about many issues which are important in different papers of the UPSC exam. So the students should remember these important points from the mains exam point of view. With this, we will move on to the next article. Next, we will discuss this pictorial that appears on page 12 and it reads Silencing the Messenger. This pictorial talks about the Press Freedom Index. So this Press Freedom Index is an annual ranking of 180 countries based on the assessment of press freedom records in those countries in the previous year. Also, this index is calculated by Reporters Without Borders. And various criteria are used in the calculation of this index, such as pluralism, media independence, media environment, self-censorship, quality of infrastructure, and legislative framework. In 2018, the first rank in this index was awarded to Norway, whereas the last rank, that is 180th, was given to North Korea. India's rank in this index in 2018 is 138. So since previously questions have been asked on indexes in the prelims exam, questions may be asked on the Press Freedom Index as well, which is an annual ranking of 180 countries based on the assessment of press freedom records in the previous year. This index is calculated by Reporters Without Borders on the basis of these following criteria, and in 2018 India's rank on this index is 138. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next important article that we'll discuss appears on page 8 and it reads Netanyahu's theatrical pitch. First, we should know why is this in the news. So the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has presided over a press conference where he declared that Israel has gotten documents from a secret facility in Iran. Basically, under this, the Prime Minister is trying to prove that Iran is lying about its nuclear weapons program. And the leakage of these documents is timed just 2 weeks before US President's decision on whether he will certify or annul the Iran nuclear deal. Further, we should understand what will be the implications of these documents that have been released by Israel. Firstly, the data that is sourced by Israel on Iranian nuclear program may aid the International Atomic Energy Agency to corroborate its existing knowledge of Iran's nuclear weapons program. Also, the response of United Kingdom, France, Russia, China and others which are a part of Iranian nuclear deal has been lukewarm to the leakage of these documents by Israel. As of now, this news is in transition and we will have to wait and see the response of United States on the certification of Iranian nuclear deal in future and the response of International Atomic Energy Agency on the leaked data. So I hope you have understood that the Israeli PM has obtained documents from Iran through which he is intending to prove that Iran is lying about its nuclear weapons program, and this is going to affect the United States' stand on whether to certify or to annul the Iran nuclear deal. The implication of these leaked documents will be that they will aid the International Atomic Energy Agency to corroborate its existing knowledge on the Iranian nuclear weapons program. And as of now, this news is in transition. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper discussion. Now let's move on to question for the day.